Have you ever felt that primal fear? The kind that grips you when you're deep underground, surrounded by suffocating darkness. Today, we're re-venturing into the abyss to explore some of the most chilling and true caving stories ever recorded. These aren't just tales of getting lost. They're harrowing accounts of survival, psychological torment, and the terrifying power of the unknown lurking beneath our feet. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's descend into the darkness together. Our first story takes us to Nutty Putty Cave in Utah, a place that became infamous for one of the most tragic caving accidents in recent history. In 2009, a 26-year-old medical student named John Edward Jones entered the cave with his family. John was an experienced caver, but Nutty Putty was known for its tight, twisting passages. He decided to explore a notoriously narrow section known as the birth canal. Believing he'd found it, he wiggled his way headfirst into a tight vertical passage. But he'd made a fatal mistake. This wasn't the birth canal. It was an unmapped, impossibly tight dead end. He became stuck, upside down, at a 70-degree angle. A massive rescue operation was launched immediately. Over 100 rescuers worked tirelessly, trying everything they could think of. They set up a complex system of ropes and pulleys, attempting to pull him out. For a brief, hopeful moment, it seemed to work. They managed to lift him several feet, enough to give him some water and talk to him. But then, disaster struck. The main anchor point in the pulley system failed, sending John sliding back down, even deeper into the crevice than before. He was trapped upside down for over 27 hours. The strain on his body was immense. Rescuers could only talk to him, trying to keep his spirits up as his condition worsened. Tragically, despite their heroic efforts, John passed away from cardiac arrest. His body could never be recovered. The cave was sealed shut forever, becoming a permanent tomb and a solemn memorial. This next story isn't about being trapped, but about something far more unsettling. It's about what you might find in the dark. A group of friends were exploring a lesser-known cave system in the American Midwest. It was supposed to be a fun, casual trip. As they ventured deeper, they started noticing strange markings on the walls. Not ancient petroglyphs, but fresh, frantic-looking scratches, almost like someone had been clawing at the rock. They pressed on, their unease growing with every step. Then they found a small, discarded backpack. Inside, there was a water bottle, some old snacks, and a journal. Curiosity got the better of them, and they opened it. The entries started out normal, detailing the cave's beauty, but the tone quickly changed. The writer described hearing faint whispers echoing from deeper within the cave, whispers that seemed to call their name. The handwriting became more and more erratic. The entries spoke of a presence in the dark, something that was always just out of sight, watching. The final entry was a nearly illegible scrawl that simply said, "It's not an echo. It has my voice." Shaken, the cavers packed up the journal and got out of there as fast as they could. They reported their find to the authorities, who identified the journal as belonging to a hiker who had gone missing in the area a year prior. No trace of the hiker was ever found, leaving only the chilling words in a journal and the unanswered question of what they truly heard in the depths of that cave. cross, from the psychological to the purely physical. Let's travel to Morsdale Caverns in England, the site of one of Britain's worst caving disasters. In June 1967, a group of 10 experienced cavers descended into the notoriously dangerous and complex system. Morsdale is known for being extremely prone to flooding. Even a small amount of rain on the moors above can cause water levels inside to rise with terrifying speed. The weather forecast for that day was clear, so the team felt confident. They split into smaller groups to explore different passages, but the forecast was wrong. A sudden, violent thunderstorm rolled in, dumping a massive amount of rain onto the fells. A torrent of water surged into the cave system, turning the narrow passages into raging underwater tunnels. One caver, who had stayed near the entrance, managed to escape and raise the alarm. But for the others, it was too late. The rescue efforts were immediate, but incredibly perilous. Divers who entered the cave described the conditions as a suicidal death trap, with water rushing through at immense pressure. They found the bodies of 6 of the cavers trapped by the rising waters. The force of the flood was so powerful that it had wedged them into crevices, making recovery impossible. To this day, the bodies of those 6 cavers remain inside Morsdale Caverns, which was sealed by the authorities as a permanent grave. It stands as a stark reminder that in caving, the environment itself can be your most unforgiving enemy. Our next account comes from a solo caver who shared his experience online. He was exploring a cave he'd been in many times before, a place he knew like the back of his hand, or so he thought. On this particular trip, he decided to push a little further down a side passage he usually ignored. It was tight, but manageable. He squeezed through and emerged into a small, previously undiscovered chamber. In the center of the chamber was a perfectly circular, deep hole in the floor. It looked almost man-made, too precise to be natural. His caver's curiosity took over. He uncoiled a rope, anchored it securely, and began to rappel down. The shaft was deep, much deeper than he anticipated. After descending for what felt like an eternity, his feet touched the bottom. He was in another, larger cavern. As his eyes adjusted, he saw that the walls were covered in symbols. But these weren't ancient carvings. They were modern, complex diagrams and equations, like something from an advanced physics textbook, etched meticulously into the rock. In the center of the room was a strange, metallic object half buried in the ground. It was smooth, non-reflective, and cold to the touch. As he stood there, completely bewildered, he heard a low hum begin to emanate from the object. A wave of pure, irrational terror washed over him. He didn't wait to find out what would happen next. He scrambled back up the rope faster than he ever thought possible, squeezed back through the tight passage, and didn't stop running until he was miles away from the cave entrance. He never went back, and he's never been able to explain what he saw down there. Our final story is a modern classic of subterranean horror, the tale of Ted the Caver. In the early 2000s, a man calling himself Ted documented his exploration of a cave near his home on a website. He and his friend, who he called B, found a small hole deep inside the cave that emitted a strange gust of wind. Convinced it led to a new passage, they spent weeks widening it with hammers and chisels. As they worked, strange things began to happen. They heard odd rumbling sounds from within the hole and experienced vivid nightmares after each trip. Finally, they broke through. Ted crawled into the new passage alone. What he found was unnerving. The passage led to a large cavern with strange hieroglyphs on the wall, unlike any he'd ever seen. He also felt a palpable sense of dread, a feeling of being watched by something ancient and malevolent. The story escalates from there. He describes a rock moving on its own, a shadowy figure seen in a photograph, and a final terrifying trip where he crawls deeper into the passage and hears a sound that he can only describe as a human scream coming from the darkness ahead. His last blog post is a frantic, terrified entry where he writes about the nightmares getting worse, about seeing a figure with gleaming eyes in his room, and his decision to go back to the cave one last time, armed to confront whatever is in there. The website was never updated again. To this day, no one knows if Ted's story was a brilliant piece of internet fiction or a true account of a man who found something in a cave that he should have left alone. The mystery of Ted the Caver continues to haunt and fascinate people, a perfect example of the terror that lies in the unknown. From being trapped miles underground to encountering things that defy explanation, these stories reveal the very real dangers and deep psychological fears associated with exploring the world beneath our own. These caves are some of the last truly unexplored frontiers on Earth, and perhaps some things are meant to remain in the dark. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the abyss. If you found these stories as chilling as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into the unknown. Stay safe, and maybe think twice before you answer the call of the void.